All right. By the clock on my iPhone here, it says it is exactly 4 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our second summer transition series of the summer. Thank you all so much for joining us, particularly to the students who joined us early and saw that we were in our practice session and we're talking to each other. Thankfully, we were saying only great things, but thank you for being here if you returned. My name is Jordan Hale. I use the he series of pronouns and have the privilege of working in the Office of New Student and Family Programs. And I'm really excited that we have two amazing guests today. This is their first summer transition series with us. So everybody be kind and gentle with them as your questions come in. But we can't say thank you enough to Jen and Kelly, and I'm gonna give them the chance to introduce themselves here in a second. Just gonna run through a couple of quick slides as we welcome you all to our second summer transition series today with a focus on the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences academic advising model and course registration. So just a couple of quick notes here about Zoom. We're going to ask you all to ask your questions via the Q&A feature. You honestly can go ahead and start populating questions in there now. Kelly and Jen are going to walk through a couple of things that they want to make sure that you all know, do a couple of different presentation pieces, and then we will respond to those questions. So you can feel free to populate those now if that works. The chat feature has been disabled, and that we can only have the questions come through Zoom because as presenters, if the questions come through a couple of different places, it can be a little bit confusing. And then the session is being recorded for all of those who maybe cannot attend today, and it will be posted online within the next couple of days so that everybody can view it again. And with that, I want to quickly turn it over to my peers so they can introduce themselves. And then I think, Kelly, do you want to share your screen at this point? Okay.
I can do that. Let me share my screen and then I'll introduce myself because it's tough for me to do two things at once. Hello, new Duke students. Welcome to Duke. My name is Kelly Cottrell. I'm the Associate Director of the Academic Advising Center. And I'll let my colleague Jen introduce herself, and then I'll just talk through a few things before we start taking your questions.
Hello, I'm Jen Hoff. I'm the Senior Advising Associate, also work at the Academic Advising Center. And I'm happy to be here and help answer everyone's questions. So yes, it's good to be here.
Thanks. All right, let's see, what do I want to say? I want to say that you all have been admitted to Trinity College. I presume that's why you're in this webinar. And what that means is you're coming into Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. And our office, the Academic Advising Center, is the office that administers advising for all first and second year Trinity students before they declare a major. So our students come in undeclared. Some of you may know that and some of you may not. Some of you know exactly what you want to do. Others think you know what you want to do. You may change your mind. And some of you are truly exploring, and that's great too. So I wanted to just share our website and just a few of the resources we have for you, because I hear so many times from our new students that they're not familiar with the Academic Advising Center's website. So I thought it would be helpful to just kind of show that right off the bat. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the advising system at Duke and how it works. You can see this advising network kind of logo or icon here. And I want to point first to the college advisor role. I'm not going to go through all of this, but the college advisor is your primary and first contact in the advising network. You will be assigned a college advisor sometime next week. And that person will either, your college advisor will be reaching out to you to begin talking about kind of your goals and plans and your questions related to registration, begin establishing a relationship with you. Some of you, even though you'll have an assigned college advisor, that person may not be available yet in the summer. So our office will be reaching out to you and making sure that you're taken care of, and then we'll hand you over to your college advisor later in the summer. So at Duke, as I said, advising kind of happens in a sort of a network. Your college advisor is your primary person, but that person cannot by any means be the end all and be all and know all of the answers to your questions, but that person will point you in the right direction, help you get oriented to Duke, help you navigate all of the opportunities. And there are so many opportunities that are offered at Duke. We want to make sure you know about the ones that really matter to you, and then introduce you to opportunities you may not know about. So we'll be sharing this network of advisors with you throughout your time with us. And by the second semester of your sophomore year, you will have declared your major and you will transition into your academic major. Up until that point, the Academic Advising Center is sort of your home. And so knowing the website and seeing what is here is probably useful to you to be aware of. I just want to point to, if I scroll down a little bit, there's a video here that explains the advising network, goes into more detail than what I just went into. So I encourage you to take a look at that so that you can understand how that works. And before we begin to take questions, I want to point to the top where it says for students. You see incoming and first year students. And if I click on that, it's important for you to know about this because it's speaking directly to you. You are an incoming student, you will be a first year student, and there's a lot of information on here that will answer many of the questions you have and probably fill in a lot of gaps for you as you're thinking, how does this all work? What do I need to know? How am I supposed to do this? So be sure to take a look at some of these different areas under incoming and first year students. When you become a sophomore, there will be more information for you here as well. The other area I want to talk about are the FAQs on our page. There are tons of questions that, answers related to questions that you will have about registration. Your college advisor and our office are here to help you 5 days a week from 9 to 4. We're on call by email or by phone. And then of course you will have your college advisor available to you as well. But if you have questions, you can also look at these FAQs, questions about first year requirements, AP, foreign language, etc. So I just wanted everybody to kind of be introduced to our website because it's really quite helpful and should be useful to you as you get started. So that's what I have to say. Jen, anything you'd like to add?
Not necessarily, but I think one thing that lots of students might already have questions about that we will go over is everyone will have a chance to meet with somebody before you register. So registration is in July, and that's probably the main thing people are thinking about. July 12th and 14th, you'll register on one of those days. So everybody will have a chance to talk to their advisor once, maybe sometimes twice, or our office is here all summer long, like Kelly said, to answer questions. So as things come up, we're available.
Right. And Jordan, is this the time to say something about the tips in the chat? Okay, you'll see in the chat there are top 10, our top 10 tips, advising tips specifically that we think are most important for students to kind of understand and just know about and refer to as you're thinking about registration, preparing for registration, and what your first semester at Duke should look like in terms of academics and course selection. So have a look at those top 10 tips and refer to those. You'll probably hear those of us in our office or your college advisor say something that relates to one of those tips throughout your time with us. Okay.
Kelly, if you don't mind, I'm going to try to share my screen again.
So I should stop.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Got it.
Let's start from the current slide. All right. So everybody should see that. And we have a slew of questions that have already come in. So this is perfect timing. I'm going to pass it first one over to Kelly. The first one is about your email address, Kelly. And you probably know the answer to this, but I thought it'd just be good for everybody to hear it. But the question is, do we have more than one Duke email address?
Do the students have more than one Duke email address?
Students, correct.
No, I don't think you do. Wait a minute, Jen's opening her mouth. Maybe she has something to say that I don't know.
Well, so there's like the alias. So there's
Ah.
the net ID address and then the name address. It's basically the same thing. It goes to either one. So you have your, Jen.hoff@Duke, but then I'm JDH106 as well. I think that's where you're
Okay.
getting at.
Great clarification. Thanks for saying that. Many of you have your personal emails, of course, but you're now sort of in the Duke system and should be using your Duke email.
All right, perfect. So the next question, that was a good one to get started. The next question is about freshman specific seminars. So the question is, can you only take a freshman specific seminar course to fulfill your semester credit, or can you take any seminar course?
That is a good question. And the answer is you can take any seminar course. If you see a course number that has an S, a capital S after it, which stands for seminar, that will satisfy your first year seminar requirement. 89 S courses are specifically first year seminars, but any seminar will indeed satisfy that first year seminar requirement.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. Another question here, and this one is about, honestly, college credit. And so the question is that their school offered a middle college program and they were able to take courses for college credit, 4 courses to be exact. How would they go about transferring or using these credits? So can you all just talk about the credit transferring process for incoming students, maybe who did dual enrollment?
Jen, I'm gonna send
Yeah.
that one to you.
Sure. So it's complicated and it depends on if you use the college credit to meet high school requirements or if they're above and beyond. But essentially what you would do is it's called pre-matriculation credit. There's a section in the Blue Book under the Learning at Duke that has a page that describes the different kinds of credit and when you can transfer it in. It kind of works like AP credit a little bit and can be used for placement. So what I would recommend doing is if you go to the Duke, and we actually, if in the Academic Advising Center newsletter that we start sending out, we have links to all these things, but it's on the registrar's page and you'd go, you could just Google Duke registrar pre-matriculation credit to get to the right page to look at, and it'll have the process for you to submit the paperwork you need to have that credit evaluated.
Thank you so much, Jen. The only other thing that I would add to that is there is within the Blue Book site a piece about pre-matriculation credit that also will direct you to all those places. So you got a couple different places to look at. So thank you so much for that. This is a really good question. I think a lot of students might be wanting to ask, but just how do they know what classes to register for? Is there a way they can have a meeting with their advisor first? And this is really exciting this summer. So Kelly or Jen, which one of you wants to take this exciting news?
Well, I'll start, and Jen may want to add something to it. Yes, how do you know what to take? That's a great question. The primary resource, I think, is your Blue Book, the Learning at Duke section. There's a whole section there on how do I choose classes. Basically lets you know kind of what sorts of things you should be looking for in choosing classes. Each of you will be taking either a seminar or a Writing 101 class, and you'll learn about whether or not you've been assigned to take Writing 101 sometime next week when you're able to access Duke Hub. If you've been assigned to take Writing 101, that'll show up in a section of Duke Hub. If not, you'll be taking it in the spring. Some of you will be in the focus program, and you will take a seminar class within that set of classes, and that will satisfy your seminar requirement. So you at least know that you're going to be taking one first year requirement. And then beyond that, much of what you are choosing is of what is of interest to you. Maybe an intended major, maybe something you want to explore that you've never explored before, maybe something that you want to continue exploring that you've done in high school. So you actually have a whole lot of freedom. It's so much different than I think so many students are used to in high school. You have a lot of flexibility and choice, and you will indeed have the opportunity to talk with your assigned college advisor before you register, or I should say, our office to help you register, to help you think about choosing your courses. Every student is a little bit different, so there's not one prescribed kind of schedule for all of you. So it will be good for you to talk to either our office or your college advisor, who can help you get ready for registration and choose your courses wisely.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to add, I think one of the things that many students think is that the areas of knowledge and modes of inquiry look kind of complicated, and they feel like if they don't get started ticking off requirements sort of right out of the gate, that you're not going to be able to, but that's really not true. So when we say you can just try things out, it's really, really true. And most students set themselves up for a really lovely first semester, not by trying to just jump in and take the most challenging classes possible and get the requirements out of the way, but really by thinking, looking broadly, look at what the options are. You know, you didn't have access to cultural anthropology classes or all kinds of classes that we have here beyond the sort of English, social science, math options that are in high school. So I'd say look around and really trust that the requirements will get met. You don't need to start on your major. All of that is fine.
Great. So we've got a couple of different questions about the focus program. So it might be nice if you all can just talk about focus, the seminar course that you take in focus, and does it meet the seminar requirement, the writing 101 piece of focus, and when would a focus student take the writing class? Just kind of walking through the focus piece might be great for a couple of questions here.
I'll go. So focus students will take 2.5 credits. And one of the seminar requirement will be met, so it'll meet your first year seminar requirement. I've seen it happen maybe once or twice, but in general, students who are doing focus will not be assigned to take writing 101 in the fall, so you would take it in the spring. And so the focus students are going to be selecting 2 additional classes. And one thing to think about too, so both of your classes in focus are seminars, so they're small and you're engaged. You have to show up having read and you're ready to talk and sort of chat through the material during the class. So you can also, for your other classes, you might think about taking larger classes. If, say, you're interested in Econ 101, or, it's a good way to pair large and small. And the focus program that includes dinner with the people in your group. And I don't know, what else, Jordan?
I think the other thing is, and you're right about the 2.5 credits, right, Jen? So the half credit is the sort of focus dinner that you'll be having specifically with your program to go over pieces. And then there's a question about like, what do I do to register for those classes? And I believe because you're in focus, the classes will already be populated for you. Is that correct? So you just the last 2.
That is correct. So before your registration time, you'll know what your classes are. They'll be on Duke Hub. And so then you can kind of look for classes that are going to work around the 2 focus classes.
Great. So this is a question about pre-law, which is a really nice one again, and there may be several students who are pre-law here. So are there a list of recommended or suggested classes to take over the course of the 4 years for students who plan to be pre-law?
I don't believe that there's a list of like that anywhere. We do have a pre-law advisor, and you can find that person and that information on their site within our site. It's under the pre-professional information. Most students do not really have to think about this or worry about this in any way until they get a little bit further along in their Duke career, unlike pre-health advisors. But pre-law, pre-business, those kinds of advisors are available to our Duke students, but there's no prescribed kind of sort of schedule or courses. There are some that might be suggested, might be good for you to take, but there, again, I think an advisor a specialty advisor, a pre-law advisor could be helpful with that. but that really will not come into play at all in the first semester. Anything you take, you're learning the same, all of you are learning the same set of competencies and skills, regardless of what class you take. That's true in many instances throughout your time at Duke, but particularly in that first semester, you're learning how to think critically. You're learning how to begin to do research, how to write, there's a lot of skills that you'll be learning, and that will set you up to be a great attorney. So you really don't need to think about that kind of thing at this point.
And I would just jump in and say for pre-law, which you can learn on the pre-law website, they have lots and lots of resources that describe things. And there are also, student groups and things like that related to it. I would just poke around in political science, look at the classes, look at history, look at pub-pol, all over the place. There are interesting classes that would be perfectly fine. And I think the one thing about law school is the GPA is very important. So you can kind of take what you want.
Awesome. So this is a question that might come up. So I thought it'd be good to answer here. This is a student who originally applied to Pratt to be a computer engineering major, but is now interested in computer science, which is offered through Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. So are they able to transfer to Trinity before the fall, and kind of what does that process look like?
I can answer that. So no, there's a few students who are allowed to transfer over the summer, but all of those transfers have been settled. So if I understood right, the student is in Pratt now, but wants to do Trinity. So what I would suggest is they can, there's an online form that if you just Google Duke Pratt Trinity transfer, and you can see the steps to transfer, you would just do that in the fall. You'd pick essentially Trinity classes to register for. And then when their Pratt dean, if I got this right, reaches out, they could just say, hey, these are the classes I picked because I'm thinking of transferring out. They could also try Engineering 101 or EGR 103, which is kind of analogous to Comp Sci 101. And so that would be a way to sort of test the waters first. And they could talk, just if they're still on the fence, talk to people prior to deciding for classes.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Just another quick question about sort of majoring in either Trinity or Pratt. So can a student major across schools? So like, can a student major in computer engineering and chemistry? Or can a student major in, computer science and one of the majors in Pratt?
So I'm going to be careful here because I'm not the Pratt expert, but so Pratt students are allowed to add a Trinity major if they can fit it in, but in most cases it's not possible, but it is possible with CS and ECE. So that's a very common double major for Pratt students because there's a lot of overlap. Trinity students are not able to add a Pratt major. There are a couple Pratt minors that they can add, and for Pratt students, they can do a major or a minor, but again, it's really just a matter of like fitting all the parts in there.
All right, awesome, thank you. So this student is saying they're going to be out of town on July 12th and 14th, which are important dates because they are registration dates. So they're asking about, can they assign someone to proxy register for them, or kind of what does that process look like?
They can do that. I guess the question back to the student is, will you have internet access? Because if you will have internet access and you're able to register yourself, that would be the ideal thing to do. But if you're not going to have that access, or you really are in a position where you won't be available to do it, you can't you can't set up a proxy, right? It's there is a form on the registrar's office, or there's a way we would refer you to the registrar's office, and they have a process whereby they can register you on your registration date. I don't know the details about that, but there is a provision for that.
Great, thank you. So this question is just generally about registration. It might be good to kind of walk through the folks through the process a little bit. So the person asks, how can they get information about classes before they add them to their shopping cart? So it sounds like they want to look at some of the classes and they want to know, how do they read about it before they put them in the cart?
I'll answer that. So on the 6th, you'll have access to class search, and that means in DoCub, you go into class search, you can click on everything, you select fall of 2022, and then you can just search by departments. And so if you're interested in whatever history, you can pick history. Every single class will show up. You can click on the little triangle caret next to each class, and it has detailed information on it. So there'll be a description. Sometimes there's there aren't syllabi there, but there's more general information about every single class, including what codes it meets for Trinity, and things like that. And a really good thing to do is to use the advanced search. So you want to do a search and just say, I want to see every single social science class, and then just get this long list. But it's a really good way to familiarize yourself and begin to learn about all the different departments and see what kinds of classes are offered in what departments, because it's really all new and very different from high school.
Great. Kelly, making sure you don't have anything to add to that one. You good? Perfect. We got a student who was asking about, they are a computer science major, but they fall in love with electronics. I want to switch to Pratt. The students ask, can they do that? I saw Karina put this in the chat, and it's a really good reminder too. There is going to be a webinar tomorrow for students who are interested in Pratt. So the same way we're having a Trinity session today, we're going to have a Pratt session tomorrow. And I think that's a really good question for the Pratt team. So you may be busy or you may not be able to watch the recording, but that might be a good idea. But I see, Jen, you came off mute. You got something?
Well, I was just going to add, nobody can do you can't transfer now. However, you can basically sort of pretend to be in whichever school you want to be to a certain extent. So for, if you're in Pratt and you want to take Trinity classes, sign up for Trinity classes. If you're in Trinity, you're not going to have access to all the Pratt classes, but you can look on their website where they have the first year courses. They pretty much will tell you what they are. It's going to be math or chemistry, depending on your AP credits. And at some point this summer, we'll find out Pratt will have an interest form for students who are interested in Trinity students interested in taking EGR 101 or EGR 103. And as space is available, Trinity students will be allowed to take that to try it. So, and taking a computer science class, depending on what your AP is, would also be a way to sort of get your foot in the door, so that you're ready to make a transfer if you do decide that. But I would also, just as the person who talks to students who go back and forth, I would caution students to kind of wait a little bit and maybe try out the one before you actually go through the transfer process, because it's a little bit of a hassle to do the process, and many students don't have enough information in the beginning. They think they want to switch, but it makes good sense to just take your classes in the fall and see how you feel. And if you want to pursue a transfer, then you can do it. The deadline to make the transfer request is December 15th.
Great. Just another quick procedural question. Can you all share where you can look in DoCub to find your date for your registration process so people can know what date and time they are?
I believe it's under academics enrollment, or under there's I don't know if it's an enrollment section. Without looking at it, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's under enrollment. You're looking for enrollment dates, and that could be on the left-hand side of your screen under academics. Your blue book, the blue book will tell you exactly in the registration section how you find that information.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. And then I see another quick question here about if you go on the 12th or the 14th, kind of how do you manage the classes, and you get priority classes? And so, for some students, some of the classes will be full, but I think it's important to remember, if you register second in this window, you register first for the spring. So that's just a good thing for folks to remember. If you register second in this window, you do register first in the spring. So they try to balance that out in the Academic Advising Center. So just wanted to go ahead.
Sorry, Jordan, I was just jumping. So, and student, if you register on the 14th, go back and look on the 13th and see what's left. And this might be your opportunity to try some different crazy classes that you maybe weren't planning on taking, because some of your other things will be full. But you're right that you will get first priority for registering for spring.
And I would also say that if I had an 11th tip to offer, it would be, don't freak out. if you don't get the classes that you really want and intended to take, because it's sort of a rite of passage. That's really what it means to be a college student, is you don't necessarily get the classes that you wanted to get, certainly not in your first semester, often not in your second semester, but there's always an opportunity to get what you need eventually, and to get, and as Jen said, I mean, we have over 50 departments, so 1,000 or so classes that will be available to you to choose from. So it really is an opportunity for you to just branch out of your comfort zone, perhaps, or to just try something that really might be, turn you on, might be of great interest.
So there's a question here about courses filling multiple modes of inquiry or areas of knowledge. And so I thought it might be good if you all just kind of talk a little bit more about the curriculum and kind of how that works.
You want me to go, Kelly? So classes can have 1 or 2 areas of knowledge, and it will only count for 1. But if you end up needing it to count for something different later because you took 2 of something else, it'll switch. So, and there's a program that students can use. It's called Degree Progress. You can track your requirements all the time, how all of your classes are meeting all the different requirements. So a class will meet 1 area of knowledge. It can have 1 or 2 codes, and it can have up to 3 modes of inquiry, and all of them can count. So that's, 4 things at once. So for an example, if you take a 300 level foreign language class, that's also a seminar that has an ALP credit and a writing, a W, it will meet all of those things. It'll fulfill your foreign language, it'll meet your first year seminar requirement, it'll fulfill a writing, and the ALP. So they do cover it. And this is why we say, don't worry so much about the requirements, because classes really meet a lot. They have tend to have many codes. Some of the quantitative studies and natural science have fewer codes, but so if you're a person who's sort of more that inclined, just think about your sort of ALP, CZ, SS classes to pick up all your modes of inquiry.
Awesome, thank you. So there's another question that's just about, you all were just kind of talking about this with the rite of passage piece, but many of the classes, it looks like some students are already full, and will there be some spots that are reserved for incoming first year students? I don't know if you all could talk about that at all. That'd be good for folks to know.
There will be some classes that will have reserved seats for incoming students. I can't tell you which ones, but you will see that. And when you do, whether you do a simple class search or an advanced search, when you open the class description so that you read the actual description, you'll see at what point somewhere in that description, you'll be able to see whether or not that's the case, whether you'll actually see that there. Am I making sense?
Well, and I would jump into that some departments, they are watching enrollments over the summer. So after the registration periods on the 12th and the 14th, different departments will go and see, oh, gee, there's like a bunch of you guys, incoming students can't wait list. But if there are classes that are all full, sometimes sections are added and things do shift over the summer depending on how enrollments are going. So there is some change, but you can't necessarily bank on it for anything particular.
Great.
And you will have an opportunity too after the 14th. So the registration dates, as you know, are July 12th and 14th. And on the 15th, drop ad opens for all of you. So you can begin to make some changes to your schedule. I would urge you to not do too much of that without talking to our office or your college advisor, just to make sure that you don't mess yourself up in some way. But that could happen. So you can change your schedule. You're not locked in, and you also are not locked in even when you when you arrive and you go to classes. You can also make changes up to a certain point. I believe it's up till September 9th.
Yep, it's up till the 9th. So a question about getting a link to all of their first year requirements. Are there links to courses available when the card opens? Just kind of talking about the first year requirements, and then any information about the shopping cart?
There's no link. So if you go, and actually it's a little, well, there is a link. So there's a page that has descriptions, a page on a website for the first year seminars that will have descriptions of all the seminars. And the tricky bit is that they're all in different departments. You know, AAAS is going to have an 89S and sociology is going to have an 89S. So they will be at the top of each department's courses. And the only two first year requirements are a seminar and writing. And this is over the whole year. So and for the writing 101, there is a page on the Thompson writing program that describes in detail each writing 101 section, because they're all a little bit different. And then you can also just go, when you're looking on class search, go to writing, and then it'll pull them all up so you can see everything there.
And I think, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but on our homepage, the site I was showing you earlier, it's either under course selection or first year requirements. There's a tab for writing 101 courses and seminars. And if it's up to date, it may not be just yet, I'm not sure, but you will see a list of all of the first year seminars that are available to you in the fall, and all of the writing 101 courses that are available to you in the fall. So that's one way you could get an idea of those courses.
Awesome, thank you. So this is another quick kind of dual enrollment piece, but I think it's a good because it's not about taking courses at a different institution. It's about AP and IB credits. And so this person asked just kind of what the process is like for getting credits for your AP or IB courses. And then there was another question that I thought could be also good to tack onto this one about if a high school didn't offer AP classes, kind of how does that impact their start here at Duke? So the first part is about the AP and IB course placement, and then what if your high school didn't offer the AP classes?
I'll go. So AP sends, via the College Board, which all that information is in the registration section and the Blue Book, and on the registrar's page. Send all AP scores. And don't worry about it. We will look at everything, and anything that qualifies for earning credit, we will add the equivalent credit. There's an AP chart that you can see in the Blue Book as well that sort of shows you if you have credit for this, then it is Duke equivalent for this, which means you can then register for the next class. And students often are confused about the way this works. So if you have at least 2 AP credits, that means that instead of needing 34 credits to graduate, you need 32 credits to graduate, and that's it. You don't select which ones to use. It's really just numerical. We say, oh, the student has 2 AP credits. They only need 32 credits to graduate. And that is essentially equates to 4 classes per semester for your entire time. IB credit is essentially the same thing. The scores get sent in. We evaluate based on the chart we have of if you got this score, then you get this Duke equivalent. And again, we can subtract 2 credits. So you need 32 credits to graduate instead of 34. But every single credit you have can be used for placement. So if you have lots of AP credit, say you got calc credit, then you can start at a higher math level. Say you have foreign language credit, you can start at a higher foreign language. If you have chem credit, that allows you to start with organic. You may not want to start with organic in your first fall, but you could do that. So all of it will be used for placement. So I think that's the main thing, and you don't have to select, just send it all in. Don't worry if some scores aren't great, it doesn't matter. We'll just evaluate everything, but do it as soon as you possibly can, because we will get the scores from the College Board the first week of July, which is before registration, which is what you want, because some classes have enforced prerequisites, which means you have to have the AP credit if you're using it for placement, and then some have unenforced prerequisites, which means you can enroll for it if you don't have the AP credit. So you have to be a little bit careful. For students who don't have any AP credit, that's totally fine. It just means you're going to need 34 credits. There are lots of ways to get that. You can get that with half credit classes from time to time. And honestly, a lot of students end up with, you get extra. There are times where you're taking a half credit or you do an independent study, you get extra credit. So you just have to get those 2 credits at some point.
The only thing I would add is that placement typically only comes into play for the quantitative courses and the foreign languages, not something like English or history or political science. And you can see, I'm looking at our site now under course placement. And you'll see the departments there that have guidelines for placement that can be very helpful for you to take a look at, and your advisor or our office will help you take a look at that and understand those charts and go, oh, I have AP or IB credit for X. That means I can place into this next level class, and we will be consulting the same charts that are available to you and help and can help advise you properly on that.
Thank you, Kelly. I see a question here about writing 101 and how do you know if you have to take it? And I'm gonna take a shot at this one. You all tell me if this is incorrect. But it should tell you when you go into your Duke Hub, when you go to look at your courses to try to put them in your shopping cart. If you're gonna take writing 101, it'll be a little banner that tells you you have to register for writing 101. And if you don't see that banner, then you register for it in the spring. Is that right? Nope.
I don't know if there's a banner, but there is a place in Duke Hub, and it does say on the registrar's page, like one of the very first pages, it'll tell you exactly where it is. And I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm looking now just to get a sense about that.
I don't know, Jordan. Maybe there is a banner. Maybe that's
No, that may be true. I know it's under like Message Center, I think. On the left-hand side of Duke Hub is where you will see that message. If there's nothing there, you've not been assigned to take Writing 101. Otherwise, it'll be there. It may also be true what Jordan's saying, that there will just be this banner that appears that advisors don't even know about. So he might be right.
And I would also say that usually students will take writing, if you take Writing 101 in the fall, then you'll take your seminar in the spring. But there are times when you could do both at the same time. You want to be cautious that your seminar isn't also a writing seminar, unless you really love writing, if you're taking them at the same time. But also something that's good to know is that on July 15th, when Drop Ad opens, even if you weren't assigned to take Writing 101, but there's a Writing 101 that you want and it works with your schedule, you can then enroll in it. So after the 14th, when all the people who are supposed to have access first, then it opens up to anybody else if you want to get it done.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for supporting my effort there. I think I was close because I know students find out somehow, and it might be the Message Center, but I know it's pretty clear to you that you take it in the fall and there's a message or some sort of indication that you need to do that. And then if you don't see that, then you are eligible to take it in the spring. So here we go. There's a question in here that I wanted to get to, and I'm just trying to find it. So this is a specific one, but I thought it'd be good to address because I think Cardea Fellows are an important part of our incoming student population. We talked about folks a little bit. So this student is asking if they're in the Cardea Fellows program, were their classes they're required to take be populated in Duke Hub before registration, similar to Focus, or is it different for Cardeas? Do you all know?
I don't believe they will be populated, but no, I'm almost certain that's true. You will be advised as a Cardea student properly on what kinds of courses to take. There is a particular advisor who is working with Cardea students, so you should have that advisor, and that person is an expert around that.
So this is a good question about foreign language placement. I've seen a couple of them, but this one asks, if your AP scores allow you to skip into a foreign language class, can you still decide to start with an entry foreign language class? Do you all know that?
Yes, so and the foreign language classes are one where it's not actually hard-coded required to have the AP. So it's a guideline. So you want to look at the placement suggestions. Every single foreign language department will have kind of a placement chart that essentially says, if you have these test scores, or you took this many years in high school, or you lived in a different, speak it at home, whatever the different scenarios are. So you can select. You don't have to take. If you want to change your mind, you want to do something else, you can do whatever you want. What you can't do is underplace yourself. If you were told, oh, your next class would be, say, 204, you can't take 101 because it would be delightfully easy for you. The faculty will will not allow it. They would sort of do a test when you begin the class to sort of make sure placement is appropriate. And the only thing I would say about foreign language too is that it's a little confusing, so it depends on where you start. So if you start at a beginning language, you're going to take 3 semesters, 101, 102, 203. If you start at a 204 level based on AP or your history or experience, you'll only take 2 classes, 204 and 300. And if you have AP through 204 or you are very proficient with a foreign language, you can start at the 300 level, and then you only have 1 semester. So it also depends on sort of how you want to allocate your spots, you know, how many courses if you really want to do foreign language and make it a bigger part of things, you can start from scratch. If you're kind of more focused on other things, you can have fewer classes.
Perfect. So just doing a quick time check. We have about 15 minutes left. We've already gotten through 70 questions in those 15 minutes, either by typing responses or by answering them live. So thank you all for your support there. And thank you to Karina behind the scenes answering them. We still have a handful that we're going to try to get through. So just letting people know kind of our time status. And again, thank you to Jen and Kelly for being here. So this is a really good question. And as an academic advisor, I love this question. So I'd love for you all to talk through it for students. It says, can students do an interdepartmental major? So can they do an IDM major plus a second major like global health? And then does this discussion need to be something you talk about with your undergrad advisor?
Oh, that's a complicated, it's not complicated. I just have to go back and remember everything. If you do an interdepartmental major, I don't think you can have another major. Am I wrong?
You can't. No, you can't. An interdepartmental major counts as 1. So it's basically a sneaky way to try to do even more stuff because you're limited to 2 majors. So you can do it.
Right. And it is the sort of thing that you should begin a conversation with your college advisor about that and sort of, you know, what does it mean and why do you want to do that? It should mean that you have equal interest in 2 disciplines and you want to combine them in some way so that indeed it makes sense for you to do an IDM. You will also, though, be referred to what's called the DUS, and that's the Director of Undergraduate Studies for each of those departments to have a conversation about whether or not that does make sense, what you're proposing makes sense, and that DUS is the person who will ask you the more pointed questions to determine whether or not that's a good idea. There are some student proposed IDMs, which is what I'm talking about right there. You would have to kind of propose it and have that approved by the 2 different departments. There are also some departmental IDMs that are already in place. And so that's a major in and of itself. And your college advisor can at least point you in the right direction and give you the information you need to get started on researching that kind of major.
Thank you, Kelly. And that was really my spirit of asking that question, was to kind of let students know there's a variety of ways to do things, but also there should be a pace to it, right? Like you should come in, take a variety of classes. That's the beauty of the Trinity curriculum. You have the chance to take a variety of things and get a wide understanding of your academic interests and then make some decisions. And it's okay to not know what you want to do at first, to think that you might want to do an interdepartmental major, but then fall in love with the classics. I have a student this year who I declared for a major who came in knowing that she wanted to go to medical school and has decided to major in Spanish and history because it's what she's interested in, right? And so I think the ability to do that and come and see, we just want you to keep your doors open as you get started because there's a lot to offer here. And there's a lot that you can do once you decide kind of what you want to major in. So thank you all for obliging me there.
Yeah, could I add something, Jordan, just to say the student who decides to major in Spanish and history can also be a pre-med student and go on to medical school easily.
So this next one is about a student who has taken 3 years of Latin, but did not take the AP test. Is there any way that they will be able to take fewer courses in a foreign language? And what does a placement test look like for Latin, maybe?
Most departments for foreign language don't have placement tests. So again, if you just Google Duke Latin placement. It'll bring up their placement guidelines, and so you'll be able to see what the options are. And there's usually a contact for the department. So if you're unsure about which level to start in, if you want to continue a language that you've already done, you can get in touch with them. And sometimes they will do placement tests, but they're not mandatory. They're not broadly given. It's more for case by case when students aren't sure what class is right.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Next question I wanted to ask is, can you all talk a little bit about the What Now program and how that works with first year classes that the student might want to take?
I'll give this a try. The What Now program is fairly new. I think it's 2, maybe 3 years in existence now. And it is, there are a series of first year seminars and a few Writing 101 classes that are a part of the What Now series. And it's kind of structured much like the focus program is, in that you take a class for 1 credit. And when you do your search looking for either a Writing 101 or a first year seminar, you'll see in the description, it will identify the What Now courses. And if you and I'll just use an 89S course as an example. If you choose to take one of these What Now seminars, you'll also be required to register for a half credit course that's called, I believe it's Ethics 189, and it gives you a half credit. So with those What Now courses, you end up with 1.5 credits. And the half credit is sort of like a lab. Also, I think it's also a dinner, or I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure, but the What Now program is described in the Blue Book under the learning section at Duke. So I would encourage you to read up about it there, or as Jen always says, just Google it and you'll find information about it. But I know that's sort of its structure, that you do take 1.5 credits.
There's a really good question here about preparing for one-on-one meetings with their college advisors. This is a good opportunity to get some advice. Any thoughts about students preparing for those meetings to make that time fruitful and engaging? It also might be good to give them some sense of how the college advisors also prepare.
I'll start, and then Kelly, you can jump in. So completing your first year questions thoughtfully is a good help, because that's a way for you to introduce yourself and your past interests and sort of how you're thinking as you're beginning to think about your transition to becoming a college student. So I think that's helpful. Looking through classes to really get a broad sense of what's out there, and sort of educating yourself about that. You know, knowing whether you're doing Writing 101 or a seminar. I don't know. Kelly, what would you say? I think those are just thinking about it a little bit ahead of time and doing the first year questions is probably the main thing.
I would agree that, yes, taking those first year questions seriously and answering them thoughtfully will give your advisor good material to begin to build a relationship with you and know something about what matters to you, what your strengths are, you know, maybe aspects of your identity, you know, what kinds of courses, foreign languages you're interested in. So if you take that seriously and answer that, you're giving your advisor a lot of information to help you along the way. So I think that's a great idea. And I'm a huge advocate of saying, read your Blue Book. Read your Blue Book. You don't have to read it cover to cover, but the Learning at Duke section and the registration section are the primary sections to help students kind of get started and know what they need to do. I'll also say that our advisors, all advisors are trained on how to work with students and advise them properly. They have the same sort of information that we have. Although I will say that our college advisors are a dedicated group of faculty and staff who volunteer to do this work. They do not have the answer to every question. Some of them have been doing it longer than others, but all of them are knowledgeable, helpful, and sincere about really helping you get what you need out of your Duke education. And so they are indeed trained, they are prepared, they are provided tons of resources by our office in order to help students accurately.
Sorry, my mute thing disappeared off my screen. I found it. So there was a quick question about that I wanted to just answer for everyone about a PDF of the Blue Book. We are working on that. It's going to be uploaded as quickly as we can. I would also say information changes pretty often during the summer, right? So we will do our best to get the most accurate PDF that we can up. It shouldn't change too much for the pieces along registration and academics, but in the orientation section and sometimes in the living section, there are often updates over the summer. So the most accurate place to get the information is the website, but we will be hopeful to get a PDF soon, just so folks, because I know there are some folks who prefer to have a PDF. All right, so we see a question here. There's a couple of questions about the first year questions and where people can fill them out. Those are just in Duke Hub, right? And you can also get them via your first year checklist. Does anybody want to talk about that really quickly? Maybe Eugen?
Sure. Excuse me. I mean, beginning June 6th, students will have access to the first year questions via Duke Hub. And I don't know how they show up because that's a student facing thing, but is it a link on the checklist? Is that how? Yeah, I think so. And it's not super long, but it is helpful. So this is the first thing that advisors will do when they're preparing for their meetings. And it just gives them a sense to sort of get some backstory on your area, your interests, because advisors don't have access to admissions information. They don't know, like what you said you were interested in. So this is a way to kind of find out what your general academic areas of interest are, what things you've liked, what things you're nervous about. And you can really kind of free form a lot. You can put a lot, or you can put as much as you want in there to share with your advisors. So there's a sort of concrete information and the more personal information. But I don't know.
Thank you for that, Jen. There's a question here about when will the Common Experience book be announced? We're actually looking at doing something a little bit different this year. We actually have a meeting on Friday to try to make a final decision. We've been working through it, so we're hopefully going to get that information out to everyone soon, and we're excited that this year it will hopefully be presented in a couple of different formats. So thank you for asking that one. Let's see, there was a couple of other good ones in here. Where did it go? Okay, so I saw a couple of questions about physical education classes, and so I just want to know if anybody could talk for a second if they knew anything about any of the courses offered in the PE or the rec space.
I can. PE classes are fun. Try to get one. They tend to fill up. There's 1 credit classes that are more academic, but on a sort of a sports or physical education or coaching kind of themes. And then there are half credit classes like Pilates or golf or things like that. So I'd say if you can get one, try to get one. You have to go under physical education. That's, the department name. So I think they're tricky. Another thing too along these lines are house courses, which are under H for house courses. These are half credit classes. They take place in the dorms. They're taught by students with a faculty sponsor. They're fun to take. It's a very low commitment way to try something out, meet some people that are interested in something you're interested in. So look at those as well.
Awesome, Jen. Thank you so much. So we just have a couple of minutes left. So we're going to try to respond to as many of these in the chat as we can. What I would love is if Jen and Kelly, I know you all kind of started off with some tips, just as students get ready for registration in July or adding course to the shopping cart in June, or just any tips that you have as we get ready to depart for students as they get ready to get started at Duke. All right, so it looks like folks are frozen. Thank you all for joining today. That's a sign. I think if Kelly had any good advice, she would say, take your time, get excited and get ready. There are going to be advisors reaching out to you over the summer. It's the first time that we're doing that. So we're excited about that. So thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you in August.